Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Playing Dead, a new online show built to discuss Telltale's upcoming game, The Walking Dead. I'm AJ Locasio, and in this episode we'll be discussing exactly what it is that this game is, what it isn't, and why as fans of The Walking Dead, Telltale hopes that you're gonna love it. To get an inside scoop on all this, I'll be talking to lead designers Jake Rodkin and Sean Vanneman. We're also gonna find out what exactly the development team considers to be their favorite moment in the comic books, right here on Playing Dead. So since Comic-Con last year, you guys haven't really talked about Walking Dead much.
We've been talking about it amongst
with
ourselves.
each
We've
other.
been making it.
We have a mute team, actually. Nobody's spoken since July.
Well, but for fans and people that actually want to get in on this game, where does this fit in? Where does the Walking Dead game fit into all this? Is it based on the show, or is it based on the comic? Where exactly does it take place within the world?
Well, the game's based on the comic and exists right alongside the stories of the comics. If you were going by comic timeline, Rick would be in a coma. And episode 1 takes place with a new set of characters all right around the greater Atlanta area experiencing this apocalypse from a different perspective than Rick. You play a new character named Lee Avery, who is actually on his way to prison. And via the apocalypse, his cop car wrecks and he has his freedom back. But of course, now the world's gone to hell. We kind of went to the comics and looked at the characters that we liked the most, who we could look at while Rick was in a coma and say, where were they, what were they doing, and what were some of the things that they would have done early on that informs their character all the way through the most recent issue. Glenn is in the comic, Herschel's in the comic, and we're able to do that because our game, at least the first episode, takes place while Rick is in a coma. So what were these guys doing day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Who is Clementine?
So Clementine's this little girl that Lee finds just alone, kind of discovers on his own that she's been effectively orphaned by this disaster.
Is it that girl?
It is, that little girl right there.
There she is.
I was wondering who that was.
That's her from a while ago. I think it's important for people to know, when you see strong, capable protagonist guy and 3.5 foot tall little girl, you instantly kind of think oh, this is going to be a 5-episode, multi-hour escort mission. Well, that's really not at all why we put her in the game. That doesn't really feature into the gameplay. What does feature into the gameplay is her being exposed to your actions and her helping you out, and her sort of being this lens that you can see your choices through, and the story in general through. She's just a smart, kind of quiet, introspective little girl who misses her parents. And Lee quickly finds that he doesn't really have anybody left because of the apocalypse, and discovers when he finds Clementine that she doesn't have anybody left either. So they kind of have to become this de facto family. And the theme of family plays through all the way through the comics, and features heavily in the game.
So if, let's say, you're a fan of just the AMC show, would you be able to enjoy the game as a separate thing? Does it connect with both the comic and the show?
In the game, we're taking the comic book as canon when it comes down to the details, but I think that The Walking Dead is The Walking Dead. It's always the same themes apply to both things. The same sort of general state of the world is present in both the comic and the TV show, and obviously, if you know who Rick is and who Glenn is and who Herschel is, they're in the game as well as in the comic as well as the TV show.
So has Kirkman actually been, I know obviously he's involved in the making of the show and anything else Walking Dead related, probably that board game.
I bet it says Robert Kirkman on the front.
It probably does. Yes, it does. So obviously, I'm assuming he is heavily involved in the game, but how? In what way do you guys utilize him? How does Kirkman involve himself?
With Robert, it's great because, obviously he reads all our stuff, and we've pitched him our storylines and all these things. And early on, we didn't quite know what their vision for the game was and what our vision for the game was going to be. We'd seen Rick's story in the TV show, and we'd seen Rick's story in the comic, obviously. But we didn't know if they wanted us to tell his story again. And then from Jump Street, the first meeting with the Skybound folks, they said, "Oh, we don't think it's creatively interesting to tell the story again." And I said, "We completely agree. So where does that leave us?" And then being able to pitch them a brand new character with a brand new story, but still keep the themes that he's worked so hard and over so many books to really explore was a great experience. And he was really receptive to that.
So Kirkman, I heard he's kind of a gamer. Was this a rampant rumor? But
yeah.
Was he concerned for the game at all? Was he make sure you don't do A, B, and C?
He actually specifically liked the fact that we were going to be making a game that was about story and about characters and about, he came in knowing there are a billion zombie games where all you do is blow away a million zombies, and the zombies are just sort of interactive catharsis, and he thought that it was cool that we'd be making a game where everyone What hugs and cries and was his
Yeah,
direct
he said
quote?
he was, I mean, yeah, what was his quote was, I don't understand why people think it's so hard to write The Walking Dead. All you have to do is make people hug and cry and and then I just...
That was his quote?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hug and cry and so that's
He also gave Jake a bunch of crap for being a fan of Super Mario
We're going to talk
Sunshine.
about the fact that I like Mario Sunshine
Oh, that's
now.
funny. He just really latched on to the fact that Jake liked
He
Super
loved Mario
Sunshine.
64. He had beat Mario Galaxy and gotten so far as to unlock and fully complete Super Luigi Galaxy, which I hadn't done. And then I told him I liked Mario Sunshine, and then he just stopped talking to me for 5 minutes in that meeting, and then scowled at me on the way out the door, and then sort of went, "Ha, just kidding," and then scowled at me again.
No,
and
seriously,
left.
Sunshine is terrible.
Yeah,
and
it's
then walked
just-
out.
Yeah, that's not something you tell people.
So we don't have a sort of like water-based jetpack that you can use in this game. Robert nixed that after that conversation.
I saw that in the original concepts.
Yeah, there's
up on
that
the
picture of
wall.
Lee just like sort of sailing around like this.
Spraying zombies in the face.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break, and we're going to find out exactly what Telltale's development team thinks is the most important moments of Robert Kirkman's original comic books. When we get back, we'll be talking about who you are and what you'll experience when you play Walking Dead.
My favorite moment of The Walking Dead is the famous speech that Rick gives off.
Yeah, definitely.
Just like, we are the Walking Dead.
He just basically comes to the realization that, oh crap, we're not actually safe. Like every single moment we spend isn't us surviving, it's just basically prolonging death, hence why The Walking Dead.
My favorite part of the comic is when Rick gets his hand chopped off by the governor. I feel like it's the point in the series when you realize that Kirkman's basically going to do whatever he wants with the characters, and you just have to hang on for the ride, I guess.
This happens to be my favorite one because this is right after Chris and Julie have killed themselves because of their suicide pact, and Rick has this moment of like, wait, they turned into zombies. Oh, and then the preceding moment I think really speaks a lot to The Walking Dead. It's him having to come with some kind of resolve to Shane's death, and even though things really did end up ending badly, he wanted to put something to rest there. He still wanted to be a friend.
So there's a line in here that the governor reads after watching the zombies just lunching on this guy, chowing down. The thing you have to realize is they're just us. They're no different. They want what they want. They take what they want. They get what they want. And after they get what they want, they're only satisfied for the briefest period of time, then they go back to wanting more. And it's always a social commentary. It's about humanity and the true nature of humanity. And that's a big part of what Walking Dead is to me. It's not just zombies shambling around. It's Kirkman and it's the writers telling you something about the human condition.
Being that it's a zombie game, we've obviously seen a lot of different kinds of zombie games, but what is Telltale's spin on this? What is the gameplay like?
Like on the very basic level, you're going to be walking around like a beautiful 3D space that's inspired by the work of the comics. You're going to be interacting with characters and solving problems and sort of driving Lee through this story. But a thing that is different for this game, that, as opposed to any other Telltale game, is like choice is a real thing that's going to hang on not just for your episode. Like if you save somebody's life in the beginning of the episode, they're going to be with you. They're going to be with you at the end.
But also then even in subsequent episodes.
Yeah, and those choices are going to carry with you month to month. And we think that's something that's really cool, especially in a world that's so morally ambiguous, like we were just saying. Most zombie games are really about this, like, the fantasy of the apocalypse. Like, you are this, like, unkillable survival machine that shoots anything that comes near you, and they're all sort of, like, nameless, faceless, just the horde, you know?
This basically.
Yeah,
yes.
And that's really, like, it's kind of antithetical to what, like, a zombie movie is, which is never about the fantasy of the apocalypse, about the horror of the apocalypse. And, like, when you don't have an endless supply of ammo, and the zombies that are in front of you aren't nameless and faceless, and are, like, your brother, and are your friend, and are, like, the guy who worked in the store across the street. Everything you're doing is because you're trying to move Lee through this narrative, and you're trying to, like, delve deeper into, like, what's motivating these people to survive, or like where are they going next. And
It's not a headshot game. It's not a game where you're like you're mowing down zombies.
it would be inaccurate with the books if you killed a bunch of zombies on day one. What's really important for us is that you really feel every zombie, that the impact of having to end this thing's life.
And we want to present a lot of this stuff in a way that you as a player, even as someone who's maybe played other zombie games or seen a zombie movie, the fact that you have to go through these actions with such specificity with this, you know, this particular zombie, we actually want people who are desensitized to be surprised to discover that they're not actually.
So the game has a really unique look, which we'll talk about in later episodes, but what exactly inspired what you guys have arrived at? Where did the look come from?
The comic book has a pretty bold, specific look that everyone who reads the book seems to respond to. It's got that really heavy graphic style, lots of darks, lots of really thick line work. It feels really hand-drawn. It also lets them really get into the sort of gross stuff that happens in there in a way that is really affecting.
Charlie Adler's work isn't too clean, and that's something that really informed the art style.
Yeah.
All of his work is like really organic feeling, and like you'll see a stray line here or there, but like we sat down with art director Derek Sakai early on and said, like, wouldn't it be cool if we just took the principles of like 2D art and just said, to heck with it, we're just going to put it right into the 3D art and see what it looks like.
So Telltale's known for their sort of like their episodic downloadable games. That's how these are distributed. What does that mean for Walking Dead? How are we going to obtain the game once it's out?
Oh, using the internet.
With the internet?
So our games come out episodically, which is cool both technically and from a storytelling perspective. Like, it's great because you can go get a nice digestible piece of content from either you can be able to get the game on Steam, Xbox Live Arcade, the PSN store, telltalegames.com/store.
App Store.
The App Store, the iOS App Store. Pay a small amount of money and get a big piece of content, and then stick with it over the course of months, which is really great. And as like from a creative side, it's really awesome to tell a long-form story because you can't do that anywhere else. Like, you could try to do that with a retail product and you would just give up a decade of your life because you would make 3 sequels and finally have your long-form story. And then you'd also have like an 11-year-old kid who you never talk to. But like here you can tell a long-form story in like, you know, over the course of 5 months and really get to know the characters. And that's something that appealed to me.
It's cool to be on the development side and watch all the people who are playing through it the same way that you play through a TV show, which is an experience you don't really get with a solid game experience because everyone sits down with those, plows through them, and then talks about the entire game, whereas with us, we get to actually, you know, have people play this one chunk and then wonder what the hell's happening next for a couple weeks and getting super excited about whatever the heck is going on next month.
So how long do each of these episodes last exactly?
With The Walking Dead, we're looking at a playtime of around 2 hours per episode. Because the stories are so in the details, like, you finish it. You sit down and it's like, it doesn't put up a lot of barriers to saying like, oh no, you're gonna have to really like grind through this to see the end. We want you to finish it because we want you to be talking about the story and waiting for the next one.
So thank you, Sean. Thank you, Jake, for talking to us today, and we look forward to seeing more stuff about The Walking Dead.
Can't wait. It's awesome.
So thank you to Jake and Sean for answering our questions about Walking Dead. And speaking of questions, we want to hear yours. Feel free to contact us at playingdead@telltalegames.com or leave us a message at 707-701-DEAD. On the next episode of Playing Dead, we'll be talking to Gary Whitta, who you might know better as the screenwriter of the Book of Eli, and we'll be discussing choice, tales of horror, and zombies. We'll be talking to Gary about how exactly he's working on expanding the world of Walking Dead. If you sign up for news and alerts on the official website, you'll be first to know when the next episode of Playing Dead comes out. That's all the time we have today on Playing Dead, and we look forward to seeing you next time, well, on Playing Dead.